Hello, my name is Nora Garcia Romero. Today's presentation is about enriching one's environment through journaling for the class of Technical Communications taught by Dr. Hanan Sadi. To introduce this topic, I would like to mention a specific individual by the name of Donald Hebb. He is a pioneer of the Hebbian theory, and since he was a neuropsychologist, this project will be dealing about how journaling is the way to weed out negativity and improve the overall mental health of our brain. Therefore, the hypothesis for this research paper is the following. If a person practices journaling 5 days a week, then the resilience, self-esteem, and mood will see improvements. Ethical considerations. This research project was conducted with two important principles: confidentiality and privacy. Not only were the participants informed of what the research entailed, but they also gave their voluntary consent to submit their responses. Furthermore, their responses only assessed integral components of the experiment and nothing else. Lastly, no harm were done to anyone slightly involved with the research project or the experimental subjects themselves. Materials and participants. First and foremost, let's touch upon the materials that were used for this research project. First, liability forms. Liability forms are important. That way your subject can be, or the participant I should say, is informed of what the research entails as aforementioned in ethical considerations. Google Forms were used to get an initial and a final evaluation. 3 participants, computer, pencil, paper, and internet access were also part of the materials. As for participants, there was a variety in demographics. For example, as we can see here, subject A was 40 through 50 years of age, subject B 18 through 20, and subject C 10 through 12. All of these subjects were coming from different backgrounds and were facing different struggles. However, their experiences were still validated and taken into account for the results. Methods and/or procedures. First and foremost, a Google form titled Pre-Assessment Before Taking on Journaling was created, and this served as an initial evaluation of where the participants were at in regards to their mental health, their self-esteem, their mood, and their resilience. After that, the participants were instructed to keep a journal and write down what they occurred during the day, their feelings, and what they could do to change their perspective on a negative situation. Moreover, they were also instructed to write down 3 things they were grateful for in each journal entry. At the end of the 5 days, because this project did take around that period of time, they were given a post-assessment titled After Taking on Journaling to evaluate how their mental health, self-esteem, mood, and resilience had been affected by journaling. Data and observations. Keeping in mind that all participants used an alias to protect their identity and for other confidentiality purposes, these were the following statistics for Roberta. Roberta was our subject who was aged between 10 through 12 years, and this individual was facing teenage problems, and they recorded 5 out of 10 stress levels, 7 out of 10 for mental health, 5 out of 10 for self-esteem, and overall they contested that they did not deal with problems very well, they had normal mood, and they had never been into journaling before this experiment. Jacob was the individual aged 18 through 20 years old. They were facing food insecurity and were stressed, as we can see here, 8 out of 10 on a scale. And this was because they did not live with their parents and they were going to university out of state. They also reported on a scale of 1 through 10 a 4 for mental state, a 3 out of 10 for self-esteem, and overall they felt as if they were always in a sad mood, and they tended to ignore conflict, whether that included with his or her parents or with professors. And before this experiment, they had also, similar to Roberta, never taken on journaling. Electra was the individual aged 40 through 50 years old. According to them, they managed conflict well, but they did feel that they were always in a grumpy mood. Their stressor was monthly expenses, that they couldn't cover monthly expenses, even working the hours that were required from her. On a scale of 1 through 10, they reported a 5 for mental state, they reported a 7 for self-esteem, and a 9 for stress levels. Like our other two individuals, they had also never taken on journaling before this research project. After the 5-day journaling period, Roberta reported on a scale of 1 to 10 a 9 out of 10 for mental health, a 9 out of 10 for self-esteem, and a 2 out of 10 for stress levels. They also reported experiencing an improvement at their ability of dealing with problems and a better mood. As for Jacob, although they were still facing food insecurity, they reported an 8 out of 10 for mental state, an 8 out of 10 for self-esteem, and a 5 out of 10 for stress levels. They also realized that they got better at confronting conflict, and also their mood went from being sad to being neutral. Lastly, Electria, after journaling, recorded a 7 out of 10 for mental state, an 8.5 out of 10 for self-esteem, a 3 out of 10 for stress levels, and they also reported better mood, and they have always been good at managing conflict. Analysis of data. In order to help us analyze the data for mental health and how journaling has impacted that, let's start off with a quote from the University of Rochester Medical Center that states that journaling provides an opportunity for positive self-talk and for identifying negative thoughts and behaviors. That allowed the participants in this research project in particular to have a better rating on mental health, because at the end, and as we have seen from the data collected, all 3 participants saw improvements on their mental stability. In addition to seeing positive effects on mental health, participants also saw improvements in their resilience and in their ability to manage conflict. As Ciego Acevedo mentions in an article published in 2021, writing intervention increases resilience and decreases perceived stress and rumination. What this means is that there are scholarly grounds to back up the fact that in this research project, the participants were able to nourish their ability to communicate with others and therefore facilitating difficult conversations. Journaling also proved to increase the self-esteem of those who participated in the 5-day project. As seen in an article published in 2017, gratitude expressed in journaling led to higher self-esteem and the development of coping strategies. This ties into what was found in the research paper or in the research conducted, because the self-esteem of Jacob and Roberta, as seen from our data, increased on an average of 4.5 points. It is important to mention, though, that the self-esteem of Electra did not fluctuate a lot. However, at the end of the evaluation, her self-esteem did experience a 1.5 increase. Therefore, this as a whole shows how journaling, once again, proves to better the self-esteem of the research participants. In addition to all the other aspects that were positively affected by journaling, mood was also evaluated in the final assessment. Throughout all subjects, they demonstrated better mood levels in the final evaluation. In fact, data collected from Utley and Garza states the following: the act of writing helps integrate the fragments of a stressful reaction into one coherent narrative, which helps individuals manage their stress. This would go in coherence with one of the comments that the subject by the name of Electra mentioned. It reads the following: I did not think I was even interested in participating in this project. However, after this, I realized through my journal entries that I was always in a bad mood. After day 3 of journaling, I noticed a positive change in the way I described my days. This gives to say that the data collected in the research project plus the data collected in the scholarly article by Utley and Garza go hand in hand to prove that journaling, in fact, does improve mood. Moving on to the conclusion. All in all, journaling improved the resilience, the self-esteem, and the mood of all participants. All subjects learned how to manage conflict and how to facilitate through stressful conversations. There was an average of 3.5 altogether amongst all participants for self-esteem, and as for mood, participants scaled that aspect of themselves as high in their final evaluation. This would conclude the presentation for enriching one's environment through journaling. The following will be references in case you would like to also enrich your environment.